Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links video. It looks like we have a new forbidden/limited list and skill rebalance, and there is a chance there is some Rush stuff in here, so I thought we would go over what we think potentially could be here, kind of predict what we think is going to happen. For speed, after watching Worlds, I think maybe we could see some sort of Sky Striker hit. There are a couple of other decks, obviously, that are very strong. I think we maybe also could see Gravity X Graal hit. Maybe that's a little bit too soon. I don't know if we're going to have balances based on Worlds just a day after it's finished. That does seem a bit weird. But for Rush, obviously, we are a bit more involved in that community. We're a bit more involved in that game, so we can probably make a few more educated guesses. So if we take a look at our meta breakdown pie chart, we can see that Psychic is extraordinarily dominant in tournaments. So we could potentially see some sort of Psychic hit, but Psychic already has so many cards on the limit restricted list that I'm not really sure how we hit this. It's very awkward because I think a lot of people are kind of at the impression that you could like maybe even take Maginical Miracle off the list. So adding another hit to this deck, I'm not even really sure what we would hit. Like, we could maybe hit something like Rhythmical Performer, but then there's a lot of other decks that can also use Rhythmical Performer as its effect is kind of generic. So, it's an awkward one. I'm not really sure how we would hit Psychic. And Psychic is still a new deck, but it's still the latest set release. And I also think doing massive changes to a lot of these decks seems a bit weird right before Go Rush World, which we just had announced, and Fusions are going to be coming out, which should shake things up on its own. We don't really know how that's going to impact the meta until we get our hands on all that new stuff. If we move on to Machine, Machine is the second best performing deck. Machine is in a weird spot just because the main reason Machine is so powerful, the primary reason, is just Mirror Innovator is a really, really strong boss monster. And it's already at limit 3 to prevent you from running it alongside a lot of other very, very powerful cards. So hitting this deck is a little awkward. Now maybe we could hit Surge Bicorn. That will hurt the consistency of the deck. We could also potentially hit the skill in some way, but I don't really know how we hit the skill, so that we can't use it with Innovator, but we can still use it with the Ultimate Flag Mechs. They could possibly change the skill so that you have to run 2500 attack plus machine monsters to just get you off of using Mirror Innovator. That way you can't use Ultimate Bond with Mirror Innovator, but that does seem very heavy-handed, but I guess it is a potential fix, because again, the Machine deck itself is kind of fine. It's Mirror Innovator that is always going to be a problem. Then we have Cyburst. Cyburst is a weird one. For the longest time, I have been of the opinion that you no longer need to reduce the attack of monsters when we use the Maximum Ragnarok skill. But I think Cyburst is going to slowly get to the point where it's not going to be able to keep up with the other decks unless we see a lot more of its modern support get brought forward. So maybe we don't need that hit. But I would still like to see the skill get nerfed just a little tiny bit. And again, I think taking that 800 reduction off is the way to do it. If not, the other like really strong card in the deck is that Chaos Femtron. So maybe we hit the Chaos Femtron down to 2 or 3 copies. But if we do that, that really, really hurts because that now clashes with 2 cards in the deck, being the Attribute Hydron and the Yugioh middle piece. And then for the other decks on this wheel, I don't really think any of them need a nerf. I really don't think SAR needs a nerf. I don't think Blue Eyes needs a hit. Bubble Error doesn't need a hit. Rebels, on the other hand, I don't think Konami will hit Rebels because Rebels doesn't seem to be on their radar. It seems to not be in a lot of people's radar, even though 7 of 8 players did take Rebels to Worlds, and it is performing very, very highly in very competitive competitions. The Royal Rebels is still not really seeing widespread success. But if I was going to hit this deck, I would change the skill so that you can only special summon 1 high-level monster from your hand instead of a level 7 and a level 8. I think this would curve the deck's power level just a little bit, that it wouldn't kill it, but then it would also stop being this dominant deck. But it feels really weird to call Rebels a dominant deck when it's really not seeing that many results. And then we kind of get to our other section, and this is where stuff gets weird. It's really hard to predict what skills that aren't really seeing much play could get a buff. Realistically, I mean, Vulcan's on here. It'd be nice to see Vulcan's skill get a buff. There are so many bad skills, right? There's things like Dark Arts of Positioning. There's things like Ride Across and its Servant of the Dawn skill. There's so many bad skills that would be really nice to see get buffed into actually being playable, and it's just really hard to predict what any of that's going to be, so I think we're just going to have to kind of forego that for now. But if we take a look at our limited cards currently, there are probably a ton of cards on here that could be moved around. Sword and Shield is basically on here just for Burst Stream of Destruction at this point, I feel. I think there aren't many decks that would make good use of Sword and Shield that would also be playing Burst Stream and Thousand Knives, but the Blue Eyes deck does have a lot of high defense monsters in the Blue Eyes Bright Dragons and Blue Eyes White Dragon, which could probably make good use of it, so that's the only reason I can assume Sword and Shield is still on here. Seahorse Carrier is a card I would like to see come off the list, just because it's really hurting the Aqua deck right now. But if it does come off the list, then it would be the best and easiest to use advantage engine to just slap in your deck, so I don't know if Konami will do this. Negate Attack, I think, is where it needs to be. Attra Shoot and Aim Eagle, I think, are again where they need to be. And Jamp Check, as much as I really like the Psychic deck, Jamp Check is really, really powerful, and I don't think this can come off the Limit 2 list. Limit 3, however, I think there are a ton of cards that probably don't need to be on here. I don't know if Dark Sword Magician still needs to be on here, and I guess we'll extend that as well to Swift Guy the Fierce Knight. Both of these cards are strong, and they would probably see... It's a tricky one. Without having them off the list and having them stuck at Limit 3, it's hard to know how much play these cards would see, because they are basically free bodies. I feel like good stuff decks would probably just slap them in and then just have easy access to big bodies, so maybe it would be a problem, but there's potential. I think Beast Gear Trike Fox has been on it for so long, it just doesn't need to be. Shining City Knights doesn't need to be. Spark Hearts Girl, I still don't really understand why this is on the list. It could easily just come off. Gekka the Shadow Flower Beauty, for some reason, is on this list as well. There feels like there are so many cards that could just come off of this list. Well, I suppose we've just gone over, there's like 6 cards that could just come off this list. But I would really like to see those come off. But I don't see them coming off unless Konami is planning to do something like with an update. And I don't think any of the decks that we'd see these cards in are going to get any big updates anytime soon. So let's go and take a look at the rebalancing and the changes. So first things first, we will take a look at the Forbidden Limited, because I think the skill rebalancing is always going to be a lot more impactful than the cards themselves. So let's take a look at the Forbidden Limited list implementation details. No speed changes. Avian Spell Tactics. Okay, this is right. So this is our Unlimits. So we got Avian Spell Tactics. This card will be unlimited as its power level is acceptable in the current metagame. So Avian Spell Tactics, this wasn't even really on our radar. Avian Spell Tactics, it's annoying that it has been limited, because it's meant that if anyone's playing a Winged Beast or a Warrior strategy, we basically don't have easy access to our back row hate. So this is going to be a buff to, I guess, Buster Blader that we did just see at Worlds. This is going to be a boost to Ice Arc, which is another deck we did just see at Worlds. This is going to be a boost to any kind of warrior strategy, and there are a lot of warrior strategies going forward. I'm wondering if this is foretelling that we're going to have more warrior strategies coming soon. This could be implying that we're going to get the Fire Warriors in the baseball deck, and that might be coming out soon. This also could be foretelling that we get some sort of Winged Beast stuff coming up. It's not really easy to predict. This is going to be a big boost to Harpy Ladies, though. Harpy Ladies have been without a back row hate for a long time. They've been kind of splashing in dragons and using the dragon back row hate. And in the past, we've seen them use Ghost Cyclone, but they can't use that anymore. Avian Spell Tactics, though, can put your Harpy Lady maximum pieces on top of your deck, which does mean getting the Harpy maximum out might actually be a little bit more consistent now, which is a little bit scary. So we'll have to see if Harpies actually does creep its way into the meta. This could be interesting. This also could be foreshadowing that we do see some Winged Beast skills get buffed. So we could see the Harpy skill get buffed. We also potentially could see something like Bolt Condor skill get buffed. There's a chance we see Spectral Squall get buffed, I suppose. What other Winged Beasts even are there? Like Night Vision, but we need a whole brand new skill for Night Vision, so I don't really see us getting anything for that. It's a welcome change. I don't think we're at a point where it's going to matter too much to have this card limited, so I think this is probably good. Then we have Beast Gear Trike Fox. Now, this could just be coming off because there was no reason for it to be on the limited list in the first place, but usually, when Konami takes something off the list, it's because something else is happening that makes us want to remove a card, right? So this could mean we get Beast Gear World coming up, but since we know Go Rush World is just around the corner, this could be hinting that we're going to get Botches cards. And Botches is an alien dog that plays a Heartless Hound deck, which is a Beast Warrior style deck that we can use Beast Gear Trike Fox in. So it might be hinting that we get some of those cards. Let's just take a quick look at some of these Heartless Hound cards. So their primary boss monster is Heartless Hound Martial Master Shiba, which is a level 8 monster, which does mean Trike Fox can't actually summon this out of your hand, but it's a 2500 attack monster, and during the main phase it was normal summoned. We can special summon any level 5 to 7 Beast Warrior monster from our graveyard. So this is pretty good just to get out a big body from the grave. It's sort of like Bill Dragon, if we kind of squint at it. And the primary target we want to get back with it is always going to be Heartless Hound Thunder Emperor Drynu, which is a level 7 monster, which means this monster can be summoned using Trike Fox. The 2400 attack, send the top 2 cards of the deck to the graveyard. Then if you activate this effect during the main phase, the normal or special summon this card, we can special summon one level 6 or lower Beast Warrior type normal monster from your graveyard face up to your field. This just lets us get back another body. So the combo is basically going to be, we summon out Heartless Hound Martial Master Shiba, use its effect to bring back Thunder Emperor Drynu, then use its effect to bring back another monster. Basically just have 3 monsters on the board, which is pretty good. So releasing Trike Fox could be hinting that we get these cards sooner rather than later. Alright, and let's see what other hit. That's it. Okay, so it's just 2 Unlimits. Nothing for speed as well. Yeah, I think this is fine. Obviously, there's nothing heavy-handed here. We are about to, in less than a month, have a big shake-up anyway, so doing a big list here does seem a bit weird, but maybe we'll see some interesting changes in the skill rebalancing. Let's take a peek. So, Kyot Bling, Cybernetic Combat. Right, it looks like we got a lot of stuff here. So, Kyot Bling, the effect will be changed to complement new features scheduled to be added to the game. So this is probably just going to be the new rarities. Cybernetic Combat Customization, this is the new Cyber Dragon skill. This will be strengthened to help players enjoy fusion summoning. We're also seeing Excavator buff, so that's a worm buff. Pride of the 3 Cavaliers. Now, there has been a lot of talk about Pride of the 3 Cavaliers, about how it doesn't really work very well with any of the monsters that summoned off of it, so maybe we see something change there. And Maximum Hyper Engine, so that is a Vulcan buff. Okay, well, I mean, it could be a nerf, but I don't know why we would nerf it, so it's probably going to be a buff. Let's take a quick peek. Oh, we completely missed this as well. Ultimate Bond. Due to an increase in machine monsters, this skill has become too effective and will be weakened. Okay. So maybe they will change it so we have to only use 2500 or more attack monsters with it. Let's have a look. So, Kyot Bling. I mean, we'll take a quick peek at it. Use before normal draw. Life is with 1,000 more. All dragon normal monsters with 900 more attack. Okay, yeah, so it's just basically taking off the ultra prismatic stuff. Okay, that's fine. Right, Cybernetic Combat Customization. So we can add a Proto Cyber Dragon or a fusion from your deck or graveyard to your hand. That is pretty big. We can only use each card once per duel. That is actually really big. Because before, we could only use this skill once per duel, period. Now, we can fix our hand twice, which is a really big consistency boost. And we can search either the Proto Cyber Dragon or the Fusion, depending on what we need. And we can get the Fusion back from the graveyard, which means there will be some niche situations where you kind of run out of Fusions, or we're only playing 1 or 2 copies of Fusion, and then we can just get it back to the graveyard and recycle it that way. This is a huge, huge buff, but until we know what else we're getting alongside these, it's going to be... It's hard to predict how this is going to be. Obviously, we know we're getting Cyber End. We haven't seen anything about Cyber Twin yet, or Cyber Rush. We haven't seen any of the other Cyber Dragon support cards yet, or any of the other Cyber Dragon boss monsters. We assume they'll probably be in an upcoming box, so we'll have to wait and see what we get with that, but this is definitely a huge change, and potentially makes this really, really good. Right, next up we have Maximum Excavator. So, the change is 13 cards or less cards in your deck. Okay, this is fine. This doesn't change a ton. This basically means we'll maybe get to use the piercing part of the skill a turn earlier. I think this is good. I don't think Maximum Excavator is like a super, super strong deck. Now, again, we did see this deck at Worlds, and the player who was playing it, yugioh, did end up winning all of his Swiss games. So the deck's obviously doing something right. This is fine. I don't think this is going to like break the deck. I think this is perfectly fine. Then we have Pride of the 3 Cavaliers. Okay. So the only monsters with 600 more attack in your deck are just added up. So it used to be 1400. So now we can play 1400s and 1500s in the deck. Fine. And now we can also use the effect if we have Night Vision the Phantom Pigeon. And this has also been changed. Alright, so we don't have to use a level 8 Earth attribute, because that was the restriction before. Because we're adding Night Vision in, who is a dark monster, I believe, that means we don't have to worry about that part as well. He's also level 7, I think. The main problem with the skill wasn't that we couldn't use Night Vision. The main problem with the skill is that it changes attack position monsters to defense position. And because it doesn't flip them face down, we can't use Shield Boring Kong to pop them. And because it doesn't change defense to attack, we can't use this to get to our opponent's life points. So this skill just always felt very, very weak. I don't think adding Night Vision into the mix really changes anything. We did say that maybe Night Vision gets a buff, but he doesn't have a skill. I guess he has a skill now. It's just not very good. And then Vast Vulcan, gain 12. So gaining an extra 200 attack, that's actually huge. Because that means that, so when we have the middle piece and we use the skill to boost it before, 1500 goes up to 2500. Now it's going to go up to 2700, which means we can attack over 2500 monsters. That is actually really, really big. Now the side pieces will also get a nice boost as well, which means the side pieces will become 2100 and 1800. 2100 can be relevant, but for the most part, it's going to be for crashing into things. And then the 18, again, doesn't really make much difference. There isn't a huge difference between an 1800 and a 1600. But that middle piece getting that bigger boost is actually really, really big. I don't know if this is suddenly going to become really, really strong. It probably... So Vulcan is a deck that's always kind of been on the edges of playability anyway. So maybe with this little boost, we could see it jump into like a low tier 2 deck. It's not necessarily going to manage that, but there is some potential. I actually think this is quite exciting. And now for the big one. The big one is Ultimate Bond. So all monsters with 1400 or more attack in your deck are spellcaster type or machine type monsters, and all of the level 5 or higher machine type effect monsters in your deck are light attribute. Okay, so this skill can be used for the only monster function in the deck. So what does this change? So this locks us out of using any of our legend... Oh no, because effect monsters. So this stops us using Barrel Dragon at the moment. This will... this is to stop us from using Jointech Rex. That is what this is. This is stopping us from using Jointech Rex. We know we're about to get a very, very powerful 2500 attack, level 7 Earth Machine monster that can pop back row. We don't want you playing that with Ultimate Bond. Therefore, we're going to hit it so you can only use light. That will also mean we can't use Barrel Dragon, but that's just kind of extra, right? We can still, because it's not an effect monster, we can still use Cybertech Alligator, which means realistically this isn't going to change much of anything. The deck's still going to be the same as it was, it's just not going to get buffed, right? So we're going to see Ultimate Bond be the same as it's always been, it's just not going to get buffed with the release of Go Rush. This is fine. I think this is sensible. I would have liked to see the deck get hit a little bit more, just so that we can't use Innovator with the skill. But this is fine. I guess if we take Innovator out of that deck, the deck then becomes very, very mediocre. So I guess they don't want to do that, and people would then start playing, I guess, Hammer Crush Deal with Innovator. And, you know, Innovator's so good it would still see play anyway, so I guess that's fine. All in all, I think this is fine. Nothing too big. And again, we did start this video by saying the meta is kind of in an okay spot anyway, and that we are about to get a massive shakeup with both Fusions and Go Rush. So there's not too much that needed doing. It's nice to see some of these weaker decks get a buff. I really wish, though, that we would still see some of the much weaker decks get a buff. Like we were saying, the Rider Cross deck. I would really like to see that skill get a good increase, but I'm excited to see where this goes. And again, a lot of these changes aren't going to matter until we get the release of Go Rush and Fusions. But that's the end of the video, and thanks for watching.